Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's deep dive event offered through NOAA Ocean Exploration and the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute and supported by the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. For today's program, I know we have registrants from far and wide, so I'd like to ask that you please say hello in the chat box and let us know where you're joining us from. During tonight's event, we're going to take a deep dive into the technologies used to explore, study, and connect us to some of the most remote parts of the ocean. And some of you are likely familiar with the more standard technologies used throughout ocean exploration. Though they're common in the industry at this point, they're all evolving technological marvels that make research in some of the most remote places in the world possible. Briefly, these standard technologies include highly advanced research vessels like the NOAA ship Oceanographic, or Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution's research vessel Atlantis, or the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute's soon-to-arrive new research vessel, the RV David Packard, just to name only a few. These ships are essentially floating mobile exploration and research stations that provide stable platforms where explorers can deploy equipment, they can manage and analyze samples collected at sea, and they can collaborate in real time with colleagues on shore. And through state-of-the-art multi-beam sonar systems, we're now able to create beautifully detailed maps, mapping a swath of the seafloor up to 6 times as wide as the depth of the water that we're in, as well as collect data on the composition of the seafloor, like this map, which is showing methane bubbles coming from the seafloor, and organisms in the water column. For example, here, the lines near the surface show dense layers of biology, like zooplankton, fish, and gelatinous creatures. And the vertical lines are, again, bubble plumes percolating from the seafloor. We also use an increasingly wide variety of submersibles and underwater robots to collect and record information from a wide range of ocean habitats, from the deepest canyons and trenches to the water column itself, imaging fantastic organisms like this pelagic sea cucumber. So over the last few decades, submersible technology has continued to advance to overcome the challenges of exploring deep waters, allowing explorers to visualize, sample, and survey our planet's deep sea environments with greater and greater ease. But it's still not easy, and incredibly talented engineers continue to work very hard to increase the efficiency, the scope, and the speed at which we can explore our vastly unknown ocean. So you're likely familiar with human-occupied vehicles, or HOVs, like Woods Hole's HOV Alvin, which is capable of transporting a small team of scientists and pilots to the seafloor to conduct research firsthand, and remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, like NOAA Ocean Exploration's ROV Deep Discoverer. And these are tethered to a vessel, and they're controlled by ship pilots to direct their operation. There are also autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, which are pre-programmed robots like this AUV Sentry that drift, dive, or glide through the ocean without real-time control by human operators. And there are also uncrewed surface vessels, or vehicles, or USVs, like this sail drone, designed to roam the ocean surface. They roam the ocean surface like boats, collecting oceanographic and atmospheric data, but without a human on board. And most recently, we're testing out a number of different vehicles that can be hybrid, acting both as ROVs and or AUVs, and even vehicles that can communicate with one another under the ocean. Lastly, you may be familiar with the use of telepresence technologies, which, through satellite technology, allow us to bring real-time ocean exploration from the seafloor to anyone with an internet connection anywhere in the world with minimal delay, as quick as 1.5 seconds from the bottom of the ocean to your living room in some cases. And these technologies really only scratch the surface of all the exploration technologies that exist. So here's a little inspirational clip to get us started in our conversations today.
Go ahead, Dive Super.
Let's descend at 15 meters a minute, hold at 50.
Good copy. Coming down.
Typically on the Oceanographic Explorer, typically no ocean exploration, we're leading remotely operated vehicle expeditions and mapping expeditions. We've dialed in telepresence exploration where we're connecting with folks on shore, where we're connecting with folks on the ship. We're streaming our video to shore, we're streaming our data to shore. We're using the latest in ocean mapping technology. We're always making improvements to our remotely operated vehicle system. And we need to think about what ocean exploration looks like 5 years from now. Maybe not next year, maybe not on this cruise, but down the line, we're working towards those goals.
The constant forward moving of technology is really important to the science. I mean, innovation is how we move forward.
So today's technologies and those that are emerging as the cutting edge technologies of tomorrow are allowing us to explore the ocean in increasingly systematic, efficient, faster, and non-invasive ways. With continuing innovation and ingenuity, our ability to observe the ocean environment and its resident creatures is beginning to catch up with our imaginations, expanding our ability to appreciate, to understand, and therefore better manage and protect what is still largely undiscovered. So I'm Susan Haynes with NOAA Ocean Exploration, and I'm joined tonight by my ocean exploration colleague, Liz Hoadley. Liz, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to share some resources with you later this evening, but hope you enjoy the rest of the event first.
Great. Thanks so much, Liz, and we'll see you again a little bit later. To start our deep dive with our visiting experts and to give them a sense of your interests, we'd like to ask you all to now answer a question using a Mentimeter code. And that's going to pop up on the screen. You can provide your answer by going to menti.com and inputting the voting code, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, and you'll be sent directly to the interactive poll. Or you can also use the direct link that's posted in the YouTube description. So our first question tonight is, what topics related to ocean exploration are you most interested in learning about tonight? A, the latest and most innovative ocean exploration tools. B, our experts' view of the future of ocean exploration. C, resources available to learn and teach more about the topic. D, opportunities to get involved, whether you're teachers, students, or the general public. The jobs and careers that support this field, and or what pathways lead there, or all of the above. So please take a moment to answer that question, and while you're answering, just to share with you a little bit about our plan for tonight. We're going to spend about 50 minutes directly with our visiting ocean technology experts, providing time for you all to dig into the topic and to ask any burning questions that you might have. And then we'll briefly share a few of the fantastic educational resources we have available to bring this topic into classroom instruction, as well as information about our upcoming educator professional development opportunities. We've welcomed educators tonight and also students and the general public to this event. So for educators, while this learning opportunity is distinct from our annual educator professional development opportunities, we're sure you're going to gain some knowledge here today that you can use in your classroom to entice your students into the field of ocean technologies. So thank you all for saying hello in the chat. I see we've got folks joining us from California, from Cape Cod, from right here in Rhode Island where I am tonight, from Puerto Rico, from Texas, from Maryland. It looks like across the country. We've got some folks from Idaho. We have someone joining us from Ireland. Welcome. And American Samoa and San Francisco. So I'm sure there are others joining us. I'm very, very happy to have you all here tonight. Welcome to everyone, and thanks for letting us know your interests this evening. We're going to go ahead and pull up the answers to our Mentimeter and see what folks have to say. And I'm just going to make my screen a little bit bigger for a moment so I can see that. Looks like most of you are interested in all of the above, and many of you are very interested in hearing about the future of ocean exploration from our experts. So I think we've got something for everybody tonight, and we're looking forward to answering all of your questions. So with that, Tonight, I am so excited to be joined by Dr. Kakani Katija from Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute and Dr. Tim Shank from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And both of them are here to answer your questions and to help highlight some of the latest, pretty mind-boggling, innovative technologies that are available to help us explore the ocean today. And just before we bring them on screen, I have another question for you. And this one starts with a quick video. And what we're going to want to know is what kind of animal you think is being studied in this video. And in your Mentimeter, it will ask you whether it's A, a jellyfish, B, glowing plankton of all sorts, C, a giant larvacean or pelagic tunicate, or D, it's not an animal at all. So as you're watching the video, go ahead and answer that question, and we'll come back to that with one of our experts very soon. And as I mentioned, our two guest experts tonight are Kakani Katija and Tim Shank. And Kakani is a bioengineer currently working at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. And Kakani has a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics and Astronautics from the University of Washington. She also has a Master of Science in Aeronautics from the California Institute of Technology and a PhD in Bioengineering from the California Institute of Technology. And Kakani is currently leading something called the Bioinspiration Lab at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. And there, she and her team develop novel imaging and illumination tools that increase our ability to make detailed observations of life in the deep sea. She's also working to automate the classification of underwater visual data using artificial intelligence like FathomNet to build a video game called Fathomverse for community science and to integrate sophisticated training systems on autonomous underwater vehicles to consistently and persistently observe ocean life. And Tim Shank is a marine biologist and evolutionary ecologist currently working at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And Tim grew up on the North Carolina coast with a fascination for marine life. And he has a BS in biology and German from the University of North Carolina, which almost became a degree in law, but switched gears a little bit. He worked in the Molecular Genetics Environmental Toxicology Lab at the Environmental Protection Agency in North Carolina. And there he honed his molecular skills. And then he went on to graduate school at Rutgers University to gain a PhD in ecology and evolution, and arrived at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution as a postdoc scholar in 1999. So Tim has been with WHOI for quite some time now. And his research focuses on understanding the ecological factors that affect the structure of diverse populations of deep-sea chemosynthetic species. He combines molecular genetic approaches and ecological field studies to understand the conditions and adaptations that allow various species to migrate, evolve, and thrive in deep-sea habitats throughout the world's oceans. He's participated in more than 70 research cruises using ROVs like Jason, Hercules, and Sebastian, and AUVs like Sentry, and the new AUV Orpheus. And he's had more than 70 dives in the HOV Alvin, which I'm so jealous of. So Tim and Kakani, hop on screen with us. There you are. Having you guys with us tonight provides an absolutely exceptional opportunity for our audience to learn more about ocean exploration technologies. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Same.
Great. Well, so to set our audience up with just a little bit more intrigue, we have one more question for you all. And this one is a mystery question. And this one we're going to make a word cloud out of that we'll answer in just a little while. The question is, what do you think this recent discovery is? And in this image, we are referencing the round purple object in the center. So what do you think this recent discovery is? And you can use your Mentimeter code to drop a few words in the word cloud to let us know what you think that is. And while you're working on that, I'd like to ask everyone participating tonight to start sharing some specific questions you have for our audience. And we have folks behind the scenes that are going to be monitoring those questions while we try to cover as many as we can in the next 50 minutes or so. So while we take a moment for your questions to start rolling in, I've got just a couple to get us started. And Kakani and Tim, we always love to start off with some questions to get to know our guests a little bit better. So let's start with kind of a bit of a broad perspective on your work and get to know the two of you a bit. Can you start by telling us how you each see yourselves in your current ocean exploration roles? And why don't we start off with you, Kakani?
That is a great question. So right now I'm currently a principal engineer at Mbari. And what my role is thinking about, at least specifically, what ways or what sorts of technologies do we need to advance our capabilities to observe and study life in the ocean. Not just identify them or name them, but also to understand how they function. What do they do? What have they evolved to do and become? Because there's this entire field called bio-inspired design that we could potentially learn from these systems and apply what these animals are doing to new technologies, new approaches to solve really big societal problems. And so in a nutshell, that is something I spend a lot of time thinking about and focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. I feel like historically my role has really been around conducting cruises of exploration, going out in the field a lot, and more and more recently it's been more to inform policymakers and educators for making informed decisions about managing ocean resources or educating the public, because this inevitably has to mean something, what we discover, what we find, what we explore for. And then I feel like, too, that more and more I find that my role is being found in identifying key locations in our deep sea that hold the greatest promise for discovery, for making massive leaps in our understanding of how life has evolved, how diversity is formed and being maintained. And that leads into technologies to be able to go there and to these places. And so that's, to me, why when I think about the next great place to go, I've been to events around the world and seamounts and canyons and the Arctic and everywhere, but it's the Hadal Zone for me now. I think the greatest leaps in our understanding of life are going to be in 6,000 meters of water and deeper to full ocean depth. That's 11,000 meters or 7 miles. So between 4 and 7 miles, you can see it here in this map. It's in the yellow parts. You see typically the deep ocean trenches are what people think of when they think of the Hadal Zone, deepest parts of our ocean. But you see these vast areas of blue across the ocean, across the seafloor, that are also Hadal Zones. We don't know what lives there. We've never explored these areas. And so we learned so much about just getting a glimpse of what's there. Here you see some video from a dive we had in the Kermadec Trench in 2014. You've got crustaceans like shrimp, and you've got respiring sea stars, and you've got, there was a medusoid jellyfish in that image with stinging cells on the end of its tentacles, and also the deepest polychaete that we know about, the worm that lives, that was on 10,000 meters of depth there. So just each one of these taxonomic groups, right, whether it's fish, crustaceans, or whatever, has developed these novel adaptations. Here's an example of a fish. This is the deepest living fish we know of on Earth. You can see the fish on the left there. It's called a liparid snailfish. On the right side, you see this CAT scan of its skeleton. And you see this little dotted line there that indicates that the skull has not fused totally. It hasn't closed. The skeleton hasn't closed the skull for some reason. And it wasn't until recently that we sequenced the genome of this fish to understand that there's a mutation in one of its genes that actually stops it from completing that fusion of the skull. And we figured out it does that, we think, because If it did close the skull, it would have to adjust for the differences in pressure inside and outside. There's 15,000 pounds per square inch or more on these animals, enough to squeeze individual cells of an animal, so much that DNA could not replicate, proteins can't form or function, osmotic balance can't be achieved, just life won't happen. These animals have adapted novel adaptations to be able to survive in these deep pressure, deep extreme places. And that fish is one of them.
Wow. So its skull is open. They don't have a swim bladder at that depth either, right?
No. You just can't have any void spaces, any air spaces at all. And so now, Susan, the challenge is to be able to get access to these places. How do we get to these deep ocean, these ultra deep places, to be able to routinely go and explore and make these discoveries?
Right. Thanks, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Kakani, I'm going to back up with you again on that same question, and if you can talk with us a little bit about you explore the water column, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, Tim did a great job of talking about the really, really, really deep parts of the ocean. But when we think about the ocean and this ocean space, it's not just a sea surface or a sea floor, right? It's a massive volume that's full of life that we know almost nothing about. And, this image kind of represents what the volume by percentage the deep pelagic ocean is. But if you add up the deep pelagic ocean, the benthic ocean, and the shallow ocean, that makes up about 97%, 99% of the total volume of a habitable ecosystem on our planet. And so, being able to observe this place and the massive volume that it takes up is incredibly important and really, really challenging for us to solve. And I think the other important thing is, that this ecosystem, this place, the water column or the ocean's midwaters, it's this, I call it kind of connective tissue that connects the sea surface to the sea floor. This is a place where we see lots of diversity, lots of variety in life there. You're seeing images right now of squids and ctenophores and other gelata, and there's a lot that we don't know about them as well. In the ocean, scientists estimate that anywhere from 30 to 60% of life is yet to be described or is unknown to science. And that affords an amazing opportunity for us to not only find these animals, but also learn about them and in this massive, massive volume that is full of life. So that's a really important area that I know my group focuses on. I know a number of researchers also focus on is trying to understand the connectivity between this space and the other spaces in the ocean, but also who might live there and who might inhabit it, and how have they evolved to survive in such a different environment.
Wow. So between the water column and the deep, deep ocean, I mean, talk about going to places, to boldly go to places that no one's gone before, right? That's kind of what we're doing with amazing new technologies. Just to dive into the two of you a little bit more, what captivated each of you and led you into this line of work? Did you have a young person experience or an aha moment that just got you? Why don't we start with you, Tim?
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Well, where to start? I think, I'll start in college when I was a biology major starting out in my first semester. And after I flunked dramatically chemistry and math at the University of North Carolina my freshman year, I became an international relations major with a love of biology. And there was only one professor that really liked me. And he asked me to come to one of his night lectures. He had just gotten back from diving in the submarine Alvin, in which he discovered methane and hydrocarbon seeps off of Florida. And he showed these pictures of these 6-foot-long tube worms and these clams the size of dinner plates. And he showed how he got in and out of Alvin and his experience. And it was another world, and I was blown away. I remember that lecture. I remember where I sat, and it was defining, because I went to him afterward and I said, "Hey, I want to do what you do. I want your job." And he said, "You can't have my job." And he said, I said, "I want to do marine biology. I know what I want to do now." And he goes, "Well, what you really should do is go learn a skill, right? And then bring it back into marine biology. Go do something outside and come back." And that was the greatest advice I've ever gotten. And I finished school there, and then went on and did 3 years of genetic cancer research, genetic toxicology on human and women who smoke cigarettes and their placentas and stuff. It was really amazing. So different than anything deep sea or ocean. And then I discovered that there was this new call for proposals, and this people at Rutgers got funded to look at genetics of deep sea vent animals. I applied and got a phone call that day and got an interview, and that's it. That was it. I was hooked and done. The spark was lit. So
completely
yeah,
captured. That's
it was
great.
great.
That's great. And I agree with you. I think that advice was tremendous advice to get that solid background before you go into the marine biology.
Give all my students that same advice.
Yeah. Kakani, how about you?
Well, it's funny because you said to boldly go where no one has gone before, and that is funnily enough something that set me off on my course. As you had mentioned, my background's in aerospace engineering, and the reason why I wanted to become an aerospace engineer is I at the time thought it was the closest thing to being able to interact with astronauts, or maybe becoming an astronaut. And it's astronauts that, in my mind at the time, are the real life Star Trek crew. And I'm not talking like Star Trek Next Generation and all the other iterations after that. I'm talking about the original Star Trek TV show. And I'd watch reruns of this show with my dad almost every single day after I would get home from school. And, I've always been a bit of a nerd, and like this is one of my favorite photos, I think, from my 10-year-old birthday party. And I'm really easy to pick out because I'm not the one holding the Barbie or the stamp collector set or whatever. Like, I'm excited to hold the spirograph, right? And if you remember what spirographs are, I know that they are games that have come back more recently, but they allow you to make these beautiful geometric shapes. And I loved that. I loved math. I loved Star Trek. And so, but the reason why I love Star Trek so much was because of their mission, like how it resonated with me. The idea that your job as a crew was to go out and search for life in other planets and learn about them, and perhaps, bring back what we've learned to base, to Earth, and be able to, add to our collective understanding. And so I really, really, really wanted to do that. That's why I went into the aerospace field. And then I, had this opportunity to go up on the Vomit Comet, which is a program that is supported by NASA, where you can go up on an airplane called lovingly the Vomit Comet, for good reason, as you do these hyperbolic trajectories or parabolic trajectories, and experience weightlessness or microgravity. And so, these were my first experiences of doing field work, like what it's like to be in an environment where you have almost no control of your conditions and run experiments. And, most engineers wind up spending, a lot of their time in a sub-basement somewhere. And I saw this amazing opportunity working in the field. And it wasn't until I went off to graduate school did I have my first, interaction with the ocean in a professional capacity, and learning that there were a lot of unknowns. Here's a place that's full of life that we know almost nothing about. And, while our search for life has still been unsuccessful outside of our planet, there's lots of opportunity still here in our ocean. So that's really what makes me very, very excited about the work that I'm doing now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kakani. Well, it's incredibly evident from what you both have shared that you are both adventure seekers, and it's also interesting thinking about the shows that we watch as kids and how they influence who we become as adults, and all the different experiences that we have that influence who we become as pseudo grown-ups. I'm going to have One last question for the two of you before we get into audience questions. And audience, I'm just going to remind you to please start dropping some questions in the chat if you haven't already. But Kakani and Tim, Kakani, as you've articulated, you mainly work in that water column realm between the sea surface and the sea floor. And Tim, a lot of what you do is focused on the deep, deep, deep ocean. You both use pretty innovative and evolving tools to explore and understand these regions. So I'm going to ask you if you could really briefly, so we can get into the audience questions pretty soon, share 2 tools that you've helped either design or that you regularly work with, what their purpose is and what they kind of offer to the advancement of ocean exploration. Let's start with you, Kakani.
Yeah. I mean, this was hard for me because you asked me to come up with 2 things, and there's a number of systems that we are involved with. Like, we use remotely operated vehicles. We use like this one. This is called Doc Ricketts. This is a remotely operated vehicle that MBARI operates. It's rated to 4,000 meters. And you know, with remotely operated vehicles, we're able to really refine experiments. We can manipulate things underwater. We can collect things underwater. And so these are really, you know, challenging tools to work with sometimes. But what that allows us to also do is to add additional equipment that we can then use to evaluate what we're seeing in the deep ocean. And, you know, the thing about these remotely operated vehicles, right, is that they're connected to a ship using a tether, as I think Susan described earlier. And so there's a lot of things you have to consider when you're operating these remotely operated vehicles, using whatever instrumentation you want. Because if you want to study an animal that's in the water column that might be floating along with the currents, you have to ensure that you're not, you know, losing the animal that you want to study. And so one of the animals that we've studied so far using a new imaging system called Deep PIV, and it's a laser-based imaging system, and you're seeing the raw footage that we collect using it. And here you're seeing a giant larvation in its mucus house. And what we're measuring, what we're able to see with this laser-based imaging system that no other system out there is really capable of doing, is watching individual particles moving into and around an animal as they might be feeding or swimming in the water column. And it's that technology that's enabled a lot of observations of gelatinous animals, or I call them snot palaces, you know, to really inform how we might be doing these sorts of things. And then, you know, another imaging system is IRIS, and this is another system that allows us to do really detailed 3-dimensional reconstructions and views and measuring movements of animals and objects as they're moving around in the ocean. So these 2 technologies are, you know, some of the technologies that we've used so far. And Deep PIV has this added benefit that you can scan animals. And I think the original question that you guys were asked that showed that weird flickery light thing, that data that you saw is of a giant larvation. We haven't, I'm curious what everybody is saying from the poll. See, a jellyfish. And what you saw of that video is we can do fully 3-dimensional reconstructions of the animals inside of their houses now, thanks to the technology that we've created. And so, you know, that's an example of some of the ways in which we use these robotic systems in collaboration with our instrumentation to, you know, reveal very new and interesting ways of observing life.
Tremendous, Kakani. That video of the giant larvation is just amazing. It's like something otherworldly, like we've never seen before. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Tim, before we get to you, just a note to our audience. Just a reminder that if you don't see a chat box, you might need to log into YouTube in order to see the chat box and drop your questions in. So please take a look at that. And Tim, tell us a bit about the tools that you work with.
Sure, happy to. And I think for the answer, I'll just stick with the Hadal Zone for now, because and I also want to frame this in a way that shows that tools and engineering things don't just pop up out of the ground and, oh, look what we have, let's go use it. For me, there's always a scientific rationale for it. There's a need for discovery. There's a question that comes up scientifically that drives us to go somewhere new and develop technologies. And that was about 20 years ago when we started having ideas about what might live in the deepest parts of our ocean that were unknown. Right? What lives down here? What are the processes of ecosystem function down there? What's happening? We had great discoveries of a lot of organic material in the deepest trenches, and we didn't understand why it shouldn't be. And so Hui, working with the Navy, built this vessel you're seeing here called Nereus. It's both an ROV and an AUV. You can take that bottom sled off and use it just as an autonomous vehicle. It had a lot of novel technology. It had ceramic housings for pressure. It had a novel light fiber tether you could use. It was like 20 kilometers fit into a coffee can, and you could spool it off the back of the ship. And so the ship and the vehicle were tethered, but they were independent of each other. We could still get live video and communications in real time and take samples like this of the seafloor. Here's a push core that we're taking. Had lights and cameras and thrusters and all those kinds of things, and we field tested it and developed this thing for 8 years. And we got funding to take it out on its first mission to the Kermadec Trench off New Zealand that would springboard into many expeditions to do a global tour of trench life in the Hadal Zone, looking at adaptations, and it's just a whole lot of things we wanted to look at. And on that first mission, after about 6 weeks, we lost the vehicle. It imploded at 10,000 meters. Something happened, catastrophic, and it failed. We had no backup. We had a few spare parts, but not enough to even start to build a new vehicle again. After so many years and $14 million, we were back at ground zero. And so we wanted to come up with something. First of all, we had to pick ourselves up off the ground and say, okay, let's reinvigorate ourselves with a rationale of why we want to do this again, the really important questions. And how can we answer those questions and get access to this place routinely, doing it in a way that's less expensive, that's less catastrophic. If we lose something, we don't require interactions with it. And so we came up with a new class of AUVs, autonomous vehicles, called Orpheus. And here you see Orpheus coming through the water column. It has thrusters and lights and camera systems, but it's unique in many ways. It can actually go anywhere in the world's ocean, full ocean depth. It can go and sit on the bottom. Unlike any other AUV that I know, these things don't normally want to get near the bottom for hitting the bottom and having a problem. This thing's built to land on the bottom, interact with the seafloor, sense things, take samples, measurements, whatever, leap up off the seafloor, travel further, and then sit back down again and do it again. Systematically surveying at any depth for life, for conditions of life, habitats, for chemistry, whatever you want, geology, trying to usher in a new era of deep ocean exploration. And so, I have this this vision of having a fleet of these things. It's not $14 million. We can build a core vehicle for around $200,000. And instead of weighing 3.5 tons like Nereus did, this weighs about 500 pounds. And so it doesn't require a large ship, a big crane, a big winch, and all this kind of things. There's anything that can pick up 500 pounds, 3 or 4 people to get it over the side. A fishing boat could use this AUV and survey the seafloor and make measurements. We're building them now to be able to explore the deepest parts of our ocean that can then find areas like methane seeps and those kind of things. Here you're seeing an animation showing it on the seafloor as it would go over the seafloor, surveying, taking images, locking those images together, using novel software that we've been working with Jet Propulsion Lab and NASA to make. It has a very similar software to what's on the Mars rover and on the Mars helicopter. It actually uses visual odometry over the bottom to visualize features on the seafloor, link those together in a network, and so you can navigate even at full ocean depth and know where you are. So super exciting, and I'm also building tools that go on the vehicle. The vehicle, as I showed you just then, is a core vehicle, but we're building sensors for chemistry to sample image sensors, to actually have sample return, push core systems, and those kind of things to go on this. So what I'm finding is, as we've built this thing and getting ready for its missions, that it's actually driving more technology. We need AI now to go on this vehicle so it can make intelligent decisions on the bottom as it's gathering data. If it senses methane, it can turn around and do something. right? And so this is why I really want to talk to Kakani some more to see about how her AI might dovetail into some of the work we want to do. Let's put some of her camera systems on there or whatnot, her image recognition software and all that kind of thing. So it's super exciting that doing this technology is enabling new technologies and pushing other technologies.
It's interesting, Tim, when I think about you talking about Nereus and losing Nereus after 8 years of development. It's kind of like losing a favorite pet. It's got to be pretty tragic. And then you've gotten to the point where, you've gotten a new pet that's better, faster, more efficient, just as fun, and maybe you even love it a little bit more.
Oh, well said, Susan. Thank you. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. It was tragic losing Nereus. Absolutely tragic. Everything went down with it, right? And it was catastrophic in so many ways. But like the phoenix has risen from the ashes, and we have all this fleet of AUVs planned, and so we're very happy. And we wouldn't have this what we have now if we hadn't lost Nereus. It's pushed us harder to develop these technologies to go further.
Right, all part of the learning experience, right?
Exactly.
Tim, before we get into a few of the audience questions, can you help us with the mystery question and what that was that we shared earlier?
I'd love to. It's one of my favorite discoveries. So what you've seen in this picture is that Susan called attention to is this purple ovoid shaped thing. We believe is an egg. The brown shroud you see around it is the egg case. It looks like the egg is coming out of its case. It's all attached to a deep sea coral. It's called a bubblegum coral or a paragorgia. And this is in the Central Pacific on a seamount. And the reason why it's so thrilling is that we've only seen a few of these. And I originally discovered this in 2005. There's a picture of the first discovery. There's the egg in its case. There's the egg attached to the coral. And what you see that's come out of that egg case is a Dumbo octopus. The first and only time we've ever discovered this. We had this octopus. It hatched actually on board the ship in a bucket. I think I have a video here. It came out. And for 10 minutes, it swam in this dish. And we then took it down to Smithsonian, and we actually did MRI on it. And we mapped the anatomy for the first time of a Dumbo octopus hatchling. And we linked for the first time the life history of a deep sea octopod. We didn't know how they were as hatchlings and that they had lots of yolk in their body. For 6 months they could live. They're fully formed when they hatch. They can hunt after they hatch. Their brains are fully formed. It's an amazing discovery. And we learned that animals like this use deep sea corals as nurseries. Instead of depositing eggs in a little hollow like a lot of octopus do in the deep sea, these octopus females go and put a single egg on a coral, like the Easter Bunny. It's a single egg on each coral, and only the corals of a certain species. You won't do it on just any coral. It has to be a certain species. So that's just thrilling how they've sort of co-evolved this way of propagating their species through depositing these eggs on corals. It's fascinating.
And that's the Dumbo octopus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So dramatically different from all of these octopuses that we're seeing in the octopus gardens that are brooding hundreds and hundreds of eggs, right, in these vent systems.
Exactly right.
Wow, such diversity in the deep sea. Quite
Love
amazing. Yeah. Okay, we're going to shift into some audience questions, and we've got some folks behind the scenes that have been canvassing your questions. I think we're just going to have our folks toss a question up on the screen. And we've got a friend from New Jersey who's asking, is there any benefit to HOVs over ROVs? And I'm going to add AUVs to that, aside from... I don't know what the ... means. Maybe you guys do?
Other options?
Oh, there you go.
Maybe?
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have
That's
my
a guess.
texting shorthand. I think that's
really
good. I think that's good. So either of you could take that?
Maybe I'll start, and I'm sure Tim has a lot to say as well. And I'm asked this question a lot, and I tend to want to reframe it in that these are systems that are highly specialized that, if we're talking about a challenge of observing the ocean, what we need is a toolbox, right, of a number of different approaches that are available to us to solve some very specific things. So HOVs, right, have different capabilities. You have human observers there witnessing what vehicles are seeing. You have ROVs that have, longer persistence. We can also have very similar instrumentation. And that's a really important tool or mechanism to also do work. And then finally, AUVs, right? If you want a persistent presence, if you want to scan the oceans with a whole swarm of vehicles, using both HOV or ROV systems would be far too costly. And so using these autonomous systems in really, really smart ways is hugely important. So, there's a cost to benefit, but there's also just the amazing effectiveness, right, and value that we get out of using these different tools for different applications.
So yeah, I'd love to add a little bit to that, because I totally agree with you on the toolbox, the toolkit that you have, and that we need more tools in our toolkit. That I've had the privilege of diving in an area with the HOV after I've been there with an ROV at the same site. I first went with an ROV, which is a 2D screen, right? It's a lot of people in the room. You can talk about what you're seeing. You can learn a lot and share, and you can be down for a long time, like Kakani said. And then when I dove with an HOV, at the same site, I was able to put 3 dimensions together that I couldn't really do with the ROV. And I could see relationships between rocks and habitats and animals that I was not able to get through the ROV. Now, that said, I have done a lot of mapping with ROVs, and you can do it, but there's no computer, I think, as great as the human mind for putting these kinds of things together. And so eyes on the seafloor, to me, can be irreplaceable for some things you want to do. Whether you're threading a needle on the seafloor with some intricate manipulative design experiments you're doing, or trying to understand really relationships and 3-dimensionality on the seafloor, I would always go with an HOV.
Yeah, although the technology is definitely catching up, and I'm sure you've used virtual reality systems underwater, which give you that kind of volumetric feel. So I don't know, we'll see. It's such an exciting time, I think, in the world of imaging.
It is the no computer, more intricate than the human mind, comes into question as we move forward, doesn't it, Kakani?
We'll see.
I don't know. I also saw recently that we have AUVs that are being tested out that can locate and map and measure bubbles coming out of the sea floor. So those AUVs are down much closer to the sea floor than some of our ROVs might even be able to go, right?
Well, I think that's true, Susan, in the respect that you can. I guess I'm thinking that, well, like for Orpheus, we're building Orpheus to land on the seafloor, physically be that close to the seafloor that we're interacting with it, with the vehicle, which you can also do with an ROV. But it's the AUV being able to cover so much ground. Mm-hmm. It really is, like it kind of says, it's a screwdriver versus a wrench, versus a hammer in the toolbox, and they all can hit something. They can all knock a nail or something, but they you're more efficient using one over another, and depending on what you want to do.
Yeah.
So.
And I wanted to add too, I think where the frontier really lies is how might we use these different tools in tandem, and how do you use these really complex, large robotic systems to supplement maybe the observations that the AUVs are doing, or maybe the AUVs alert you to really interesting locations, like coral gardens, that you can come back to later and explore and really find detail using ROVs or HOVs. So I think that's a really exciting frontier of where things are going.
It absolutely is. And I'm going to bounce to a quick question from one of our colleagues, just going back to the Dumbo octopus egg again, Tim. Where was that found, and at what depth?
So it was close to 2,000 meters depth on Kelvin Seamount. You mean the picture we showed, or the one we first discovered?
The octopus egg that we showed.
So the egg we showed was, I think, in the Central Pacific. That one might have been the musician seamounts.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
Deep Discover to image that in 2019, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one where we showed the physical octopus, that's from Calvin Seamount in the North Atlantic.
Gotcha. From the North Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
That's the New England seamount chain.
That's right, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Team, can we grab another question from our audience? Okay, so Anna has asked, she's interested in hearing the background and history of all of you, the two of you, and she wonders if you were inspired to get into science by any specific work of literature, novels, or movies, I guess, besides Star Trek.
I was gonna say, doesn't that fit in there? Because there are Star Trek movies. I'll let Tim answer because I think I
Yikes! I'm still working on it.
tried to do that already.
Well, honestly, I feel like when I first started getting into this in college, and even on my first expedition in 1993, I felt like at that time that what I've been reading and growing up was about. I've read a lot about explorers, about Vasco da Gama, about Magellan, and seeing that the world was mapped, all the continents were known, all the spaces were found, and I was like, okay, so we know less about the deep ocean. Maybe I'm going to really go into the deep ocean science. And I realized then that we know so little about the deep ocean that you could be a Vasco da Gama or Magellan in the deep sea and make major discoveries and major contributions to humankind. And that's really what I wanted to do. And so I think it was actually reading those early books or early in my life, works of explorers that drove me really to want to be one and finding a place where I could explore and learn more about. Science is really just about curiosity, asking questions, and then taking the action to learn more and go after them. And so I think that would be part of my answer.
Great, thank you. And I would add a cornball one there from my own experience. Island of the Blue Dolphins when I was in 5th grade is what captured me and
Wow.
the thing that got me really excited about marine science and marine science education. Nice.
Interesting.
We did have a question early in the evening. Some folks wanted to know if the field that the two of you are working on is a relevant one for physics graduates to work in.
Yes.
That's a good
I
comment.
mean, everything that we do is governed by physics. So having that background, that understanding is incredibly important. Like physics is an important part of, any engineering curriculum, which is, the training that I've had. But imagine you're deploying these systems, you're building these things. They're working within a fluid environment that has, forcing and pressure and all. In order to understand what those interactions really are, you need to have a basic understanding of physics and how that interplays with the biological systems that live there. So absolutely yes is my answer to that question.
Yeah, and I'll add an absolutely yes to that too, just as I start thinking about how species maintain themselves in the ocean through dispersal, migration of larvae, and those larvae are totally ruled by physics of the water column, the physics of deep sea hydrothermal vent systems, and circulation patterns and flow are right down the center of physics. And so I think there's a wide range of actually subdisciplines of physics you could get into here, or subdisciplines of oceanography you could get into easily going through physics.
Really gets into the total interdisciplinary aspect of oceanography and marine science as a whole, right? Whether you're a biologist or a chemist or any of the other disciplines, you need to know about them all in order to really capture a concrete understanding of whatever it is that you're studying, right?
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to ask you both one of my questions. What's one of the most exciting or bizarre experiences you've had while you've been exploring the ocean or working with ocean exploration technologies?
Exciting or bizarre?
I bet there's several.
I think bizarre brings a connotation of surprise to me, and so I'm going to say was in a telepresence mission once in the Atlantic Canyons here on the east coast of the U.S., and we were on the bottom, and we were just filming fish interactions with the bottom and whatnot, and we saw this shrimp attack a fish. Okay, this is like a McTofu fish about this long, and the shrimp was about a little bit shorter, and the shrimp had a hold on the fish and took it down to the seafloor, started ripping its flesh. And I'd never seen this before, never thought about this could ever happen before. And not only was it ripping the flesh of the fish, I assumed to eat it, but it was ripping at the stomach. And it kept ripping the stomach until it got the stomach open on the fish and pulled out a small fish and ate it. I've never ever seen that again. It was so bizarre. I don't even. I mean, we were all astounded at seeing this thing. It was just amazing.
I remember that. I'm going to have to pull up that. I'll find that video later and I'll send it to our participants because that was something.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
That was definitely something.
I have not heard that story before, but thank you for sharing the visuals in my mind. I think for me, I'm going to say something maybe exciting because we're now several imaging systems, vehicles, algorithms, we're doing a lot of work with artificial intelligence now. But I remember my very first deep sea instrument that we developed. It was that laser-based imaging system that we showed earlier called DPIB. And I remember that there was so much uncertainty around what we were going to see. This is an example of a laser sheet, or at least it generates a line on the seafloor. In our case, we have a very, very powerful laser, a 2-watt laser that illuminates not just what's happening right on the, on the seafloor, but also everything in between. And I remember being really nervous, like, is this thing actually going to work? I mean, I've done all this testing. The team had debugged everything. We have our test tank facility here at Mbari. We spent a lot of time making sure everything was aligned. And I remember the very, very first time we turned on the instrument in situ at like 400 and 500 meters deep. I was in the control room with obviously the ROV pilots and a legend, Bruce Robeson, who's a senior scientist here, and he's also a midwater ecologist. He was also in the room, and this is somebody who's spent 30 plus years looking at these animals in their environment and using a variety of vehicles, HOVs, ROVs, to make those observations. And I remember when we turned on that laser and we started scanning a giant larvation in its snot palace, and you all have seen what that video now looks like. And I remember hearing Bruce, and this is a man who's seen pretty much everything, oohing and awing in the control room. And it wasn't until that moment where I realized, I think we did something right. So very, very excited that worked out, and we've been able to do a number of things with it since.
So Kakani, I just got back from a cruise on the Falcor 2 with Sebastian ROV, where we had that system mounted for the first time on Sebastian, and diving off of the Galapagos Islands. We were in about the same depth, a little bit deeper, and I was blown away by this laser line scanner. It's that purple laser line and the two cameras that take images of the laser line. And when it gets distorted because of the topography of the seafloor or animals, it takes a picture and can measure that to millimeters. I was just astounded that we were mapping individual crabs on corals to such a fine quantitative ability. It was amazing. I was blown away.
Yeah, what the laser imaging technology really affords is an incredible resolution that we haven't had before. So I think that's a LiDAR system you're talking about.
That is actually, yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think we have that image, Tim, but it might take us a few minutes to pull that one up. So maybe we'll come back to that one a little bit later.
Your question, Susan, is one that could generate hours of discussion. I think
Right?
the crazy things. I can think about the isopod we saw in the Puerto Rico Trench a year ago with Alvin. There's so many things that are coming up now. I'm spinning. So anyway,
Oh my goodness.
thanks for doing that.
I'm wondering, our team behind the scenes. Oh, look what we found.
There it is. There it is. This is a heterocarpus shrimp in one of the canyons off the coast here, Mid-Atlantic canyons, and it looks like it's predating on this fish that it's captured. It's holding it down on the seafloor, and it's holding it with some of its legs and picking at it with others. And you see it's targeting the gut area of the fish. Yeah, and if you look carefully, it may have just done it. It pulled out almost a fully formed little fish and eating it. Not yet, maybe.
It's coming.
It happens in a.
It's graphic.
Yes.
You can see it's needling its way into the how it knows where the stomach of the fish is. How it knows there's a meal in there. I don't. This is just bizarre.
Oh.
It can't be good, right, for the fish.
No, it's
A little deadly for them both, right?
It's just astounding. It goes to speak that almost every time we dive, it's almost every dive we find something new, especially when we're exploring some new area. It's just incredible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Alvin spent a couple of years getting upgraded to going from 4,500 meters depth limitation to 6,500. And we took it out for the first time last August in the Puerto Rico Trench. And I dove past 6,000 meters for the first time in my career, and it blew me away. I always say the deep ocean is like a different world, even though it is more a world than any place else on land. It's like a different world. And when I dove below 6,000, it was ridiculously different to me. Instantaneously, it was different. I was blown away. And then I found this amazing isopod species, and it was just phenomenal. So, every time we go out, we find something new, just like we saw with that shrimp and that fish.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if our team behind the scenes can pull up that isopod video, because the one you're referencing is just really cool. In the meantime, while we might be waiting for that, we did have a question about deep sea animals possibly seeing underwater vehicles as predators. Have any of the robots you guys have ever used actually been attacked?
yes.
Yes.
I mean, there's embargoed AUVs that regularly come back with shark's teeth embedded in them. But I do want to say that that's actually a really big challenge. If you're trying to study these biological systems, you want to make sure that whatever the vehicle is that you're using is built in such a way that you can do that. So like minimizing what your presence might be, yes, you might be a big vehicle, but you might be able to use different illumination that doesn't surprise the animals, or you can change the orientation of your thrusters, let's say, to reduce the kind of hydrodynamic disturbance a big vehicle can create. And also making changes to how you power the vehicle. A quieter vehicle, a non-hydraulic system can be beneficial in that aspect. So there's actually a lot of engineering that goes into how you make these systems compatible with the biological systems you might be wanting to observe. And that's especially true in the midwaters, where animals are really, really skittish and are hyper aware and hypersensitive to light, particularly in the green and blue wavelengths.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I think on the whole, I'm thinking of ROVs and HOVs, we don't really see that we're impacting them in terms of they're thinking we're a predator. I think that the Alvin's been attacked, I think at least twice by sailfish, getting stuck in the parts of the vehicle. But I don't really we don't see things fleeing it, if you will, or cowering, or I think crabs will respond to the pressure wave. It's really the pressure wave as the vehicle moves forward that they look up or cower or do something that's reactive to the vehicle. But in terms of being a predator, I really can't. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have that isopod video, Tim.
Okay. I'm not sure. Oh, so here it is. So isopods are known from deep areas, deep trenches, but usually they come up all smushed in a dredge in the 1940s. We haven't seen them, recently. And here's one we happened upon. You see, it's swimming with its paddles. It's got 4 legs and these paddles that extend out. There's actually 2 per leg. And like a swimmer, they open up and spread out when they pull on the downstroke, come together on the upstroke. But what's weird is that it's swimming upside down. The butt is the leading edge up top, and
Oh, weird.
mouth it's carrying sargassum off the seafloor. See, that's seaweed it's carrying, but it's going vertical in the water column. And in Alvin, I could see them out different windows at the same time going up like bottle rockets. And it was just a step. Why they were going vertical and where they were going, I have no idea. If they actually eat the sargassum, we don't know. But this is like our first dive going below 6,000 meters, and bam, some new behavior, some new species, something we haven't seen before. Just astonishing. And I mean, here you see Alvin working on the deep sea floor.
So there were a whole bunch of them that went up at the same time?
We saw 23 of them on the course of our dive, and so yes, I could see one going on the port side and one on the starboard side going at the same time. Where they were going, I have no idea. They were all carrying sargassum, presumably in their teeth, in their mouth. We know that isopods in other places eat seaweed as a food source, but where were they going with it? What are they doing with it? I'm hypothesizing right now that they actually use it as sensory or as camouflage, smell, olfactory camouflage.
Mm-hmm.
There can't be smelled, but anyway, I don't really know. Just sort of guessing. But it just shows you that, again, that every time we go somewhere else, we find something really extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kakani, before we wrap up our question time, I did want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about FathomNet and share a little bit about that technology.
Oh, yeah. I started talking about the imaging technologies that we have been developing, but there's actually a broader challenge that our community faces. The fact that we collect lots of visual data. We've seen a lot of this footage that we've shared today. We have ROVs diving all over the world. But it's not just ROVs, it's the HOVs, it's even the AUVs, right? There's drop camera systems. These are all systems that are collecting visual data. But it's the hard part isn't just the collection, it's actually the processing of this, converting pixel information that might be contained in imagery or video and have it be meaningful or actionable information like IDs of animals, counts of animals. And so what we've spent a lot of time thinking about is how can we do this using artificial intelligence? And what this video you're seeing right now is an algorithm that we've trained using a big database or big library that we've been developing called FathomNet. And you can see just in this demonstration video that this autonomous, this automated system, this algorithm is able to not only identify things sometimes to the species or genus level, but you're also able to count them, know individuals, but also know kind of the confidence, right, of this algorithm in identifying what this object is. And so it's hugely, hugely powerful in perhaps kickstarting annotation pipelines or processing of visual data, and being able to create and share this information with a broader community is really, really important because it's such a massive challenge that we have. Hundreds of thousands of hours of video data have been collected, and only a few of them, a small fraction of it has actually been processed. And so we hope that FathomNet will enable that. And so you can check that out at fathomnet.org. And it's a place where you can search for particular types of imagery of different types of animals in the ocean. And then what we're also in the process of doing is building out mechanisms for engagement, but particularly engaging really, really broad audiences and enthusiast groups. So we're building a game that's going to be mobile app-based that anyone can play. And we're asking people to join us in this journey of ocean exploration and discovery to identify the different life that game players come across when they're looking at this visual data. And so what you're about to see, or maybe not, is what a dive actually looks like within the game. And this is part of a multi-institutional effort. And the idea being here that we can, basically dive into these ocean environments, and players can interact directly with real scientific data and help us identify the animals that they're looking at. And by doing that, those identifications can be used to then train these algorithms, this artificial intelligence, to help us, observe and understand life that's in the ocean. And so this is an example of what a dive experience might look like, where players can move around in this environment and search for particular active missions or particular animal groups, and then click on or tap on your screen to release a pulse that unveils some other animals and images. And so the idea here is that we're going to be hopefully launching the first full version of the game in March. But we've opened up beta testing. So if you go to that website, fathomverse.game, you can sign up, download a beta version of the game, and give us some really helpful feedback on how we might improve it in time for the official release in March.
Terrific, Kakani. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we will have that in our list of resources for our audience to sign up and play along and test it out, help you test it out. So terrific. Tim, I'm going to ask you to take us home with the question and answer portion of tonight with maybe a quick thought on, and I know this is, how can you possibly do a quick thought on this, but the future of ocean technology exploration. What's your thought?
Yeah, got a couple hours.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think it's interesting you have us on, because I think Kakani is part of the future, an integral part of the future. She's identified where we are just log jammed in terms of data moving forward. Well, I think we're going to be collecting data at a much greater rate coming up. We're going to have more autonomous underwater vehicles and smaller ROVs, capable ROVs, to go on smaller vessels, to get more presence in the deep ocean, more exploration, more dedicated exploration to solve certain problems that we have in society. That is understanding our biodiversity, our resources, looking at our own exclusive economic zones for critical minerals and those kinds of things. There's going to be more and more in the recent future coming up. I think we're going to see a lot of importance put on communication among vehicle systems, AUVs speaking to HOVs and ROVs. I think we're already thinking about that for Orpheus, speaking with Alvin and relaying what it's found to the vehicle, to an ROV or Alvin to continue on to do its work. It's going to be seriously important. I know that NASA's looking for this for space. Here's an animation showing you the future vision of AUV work. Taking Orpheus as an example, here we are surveying with multiple vehicles in the water. They're talking to each other. One's imaging and running over a methane seep or a vent site. It keys it in, logs it in, sends information to another AUV. That AUV responds by changing its mission to another mission that's logged in, and goes down and sits on the bottom and interacts with the vent or seep site, looking at the sediment, the chemistry of the water, the animals, microbes, taking eDNA samples, environmental DNA samples, whatever you want to do. Even here, we've got, in this vision, we've got it tethered using that light fiber tether that Nereus had. We can still use that on this AUV and sort of make it a hybrid, and in real time see what it's doing and interact with it. We can put a manipulator on this and take samples from the bottom, communicate like it's doing off the tail here to static landers on the seafloor, communicating data to the landers, and the landers send the data up to the ship. And I think when you see this kind of vision of what multiple vehicles can do, you think about, well, batteries are going to be really important. I think battery technology has got to take off for us if we're going to really move this forward. And I think there's even talk now about how we can leave these vehicles down and just re-battery with them constantly. Don't need to bring them up to the ship in the future. Just have them down there working all the time on the batteries, recharging batteries down there. And so I think that's what we're seeing for the future. It's going to be more exploration, more technologies brought to bear that are autonomous, remote sensing, and I also think genomes are going to be part of this equation. We're going to learn so much more from genomics about what's living in our ocean than we will from, in some ways, having the physical specimen. I mean, 10 years ago, I'll just say we were getting our prescription drugs by going out into the marsh, grabbing a plant, grinding it up, making it into a slurry, putting it into a needle and putting it into a rat with cancer and seeing the anti-tumor properties, right? Today, we need the genome for that. We can produce chemicals from the genome. When we know what the sequences is, we can produce the protein, the enzyme that they make. And so the genome becomes the resource we need. And so it's going to be strategic sampling on going to certain places in our ocean to get these genomes and using technologies to get those genomes. I think it's all part of the same equation.
We spoke.
How's that for a quick answer, Susan?
Yeah, right. That was good. That was really good. You covered a lot of ground there.
Fire hose.
We spoke earlier about, just briefly, about technology catching up with our imaginations. And I, it's happening. It's happening every day. It's like the future is now. And it's almost, we can conceptualize what our future might look like, but we won't really know until we're there. And it's phenomenal to think about where we are today and all of the technology that the two of you have shared with us, how far we've gotten just in our own lifetimes, in our capabilities, in technological devices and technological innovation to explore our own planet, never mind other planets. Just fantastic.
Yeah, I did want to add to this, though. I mean, there's obviously a heavy focus on robotics, right? Because these systems can enable us to persistently operate, perhaps target our sampling later on. But really, the challenge, as I see it too, it's not only creating these systems that collaboratively work together. It's also building these systems in such a way that humans can effectively collaborate with these systems as well. And so, because this problem of ocean exploration and discovery is just so large, and you can release a whole bunch of vehicles, but at the end of the day, humans still need to be in the loop to help guide them, or at least say something about what the novelty of the observation is. And so making sure you have people in the loop to ensure that these systems are operating properly is incredibly important. So I just want to make it clear that there's always going to be a role for humans, but also particularly because the ways in which we've been doing ocean exploration discovery has not scaled very well, right? We tend to use these research vessels or these big, robotic vehicles. And yes, things are getting smaller, but at the end of the day, what we really, really have to do is expand our capacity by inviting more people into the problem, to invite more people to help us in our mission of ocean exploration and discovery. And so, I mentioned the game, I mentioned FathomNet, it's big collaborative efforts where we can incorporate artificial intelligence, but also people in the loop to help us solve these really challenging problems that our community faces. So yes, it's technology, but of course it's always about people in the end.
Super good point, Kakani, and a great wrap up to our Q&A portion of our evening. Just knowing that the technology and the human race, we need to work together to be as efficient as possible. So grateful for both of you for your time and sharing your expertise with us tonight. Cannot thank you enough. And we will be sharing the resources from both of your facilities, the education resources and science resources, in a document that we're going to share with our audience in just a few minutes. Feel free to stick around, and if not, we will catch up with you guys at your next amazing expedition or in some AI universe.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so very much. Folks, we hope that our experts' perspectives have really shed some wonderful light on the incredible work that's being done in this realm and have given you some great food for thought. I know it's given me some phenomenal food for thought. And we are now going to turn the screen over to my colleague Liz to share some of the fantastic ocean technology resources that are available for you all to bring the science into your classroom and living rooms going forward. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me. And I'm, again, so grateful that our experts were able to join us. I know my wheels are definitely spinning as well. Um, so my last end of the show is to make sure that we can share with you additional resources. We recognize this topic is just too broad and too incredible to possibly cover in 90 minutes. So each of you ahead of today's event should have received a resource sheet. If not, don't worry, we'll be sure to reshare after the event. But the resource sheet, I'm going to get that pulled up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. It's this 3-page document here, which if that doesn't tell you something special about this topic, I don't know what does. Typically, when we do these events, we have 1 page of resources. So what we've been able to capture here is just a variety of additional materials ranging from videos to lessons to websites featured from our guest experts and more, for you to really be able to dive in at your own pace and kind of pick your poison of which wormhole of ocean technology you decide to go down. Since we are running short on time tonight, I just wanted to pick a couple to highlight. There's a lot here and we could spend all night covering it. But really starting at the top of this list, what our team has done is pulled together a number of really recent videos, most of these captured within the past year, from current expeditions that highlight some of the technologies that were discussed tonight. I know I saw a lot of wows in the comments from all the multimedia. And so if you're looking for more of the various robots and submersibles, be sure to check out this video list right at the top. A couple others that were mentioned tonight were Fathomverse. So again, if we can get that link pulled up on screen, the fathomverse.game link is really an opportunity for you to join in. If you scan the QR code here on the 3rd page of this list, you can get there as well. But that direct link, if you are looking to join the team of beta testers for this community science opportunity, is fathomverse.game. And another great education, and if you do go to that page, apologies, I'm jumping around screens. The fathomverse.game link, it looks just like the version Kakani shared on her phone, but if you keep scrolling all the way to the bottom is where you fill out that information to register to join the beta testing team. Another resource from our colleagues at Woods Hole that's a really great educational tool. I know I use it all the time when we are exploring a new topic for education resources, is the Dive and Discover. These are interactive web pages that really have a breadth of information, very student-friendly, very teacher-friendly, a great resource to learn more. They come on a variety of ocean exploration topics, but very relevant for tonight is the underwater research vehicles, and they have a couple modules within there to learn more and some of the challenges that these vehicles face that I know our experts discussed tonight. And then lastly, as NOAA Ocean Exploration, we of course want to share some of the educational resources that our team has to offer. So our website for NOAA Ocean Exploration is oceanexplorer.noaa.gov. On our website, we offer a variety of resources to dive further into ocean exploration technologies. Starting with our education tab, if you head to view all, that's our version of our education homepage. You can dive in and explore by theme. We have a theme just for underwater robots where you can look at lessons, fact sheets, stories from the field, and a curated list of past expeditions that really feature this topic and some advancements in technology. But since this topic is so big and our office is very invested, also be sure to check out under our Science and Technology tab, our exploration tools is another place to go. So this is really quick learning guides about various tools and technologies, including the variety of submersibles we discussed tonight, some of the special sampling devices that you see on those vessels, and more. And I know I'm breezing through this. All of these links are available on that resource document again. But the last resource I want to highlight tonight is the Deep Ocean Education Project website. So this website is a special collaboration between our office, Ocean Exploration Trust, and Schmidt Ocean Institute. The idea behind the site is to, again, with accessibility in mind, and make ocean exploration education as accessible and easy for anyone to explore as possible. Once you hit the site, you can dive in and look at resources under the Explore tab, very similar to our website. You can explore by theme. Here we've got marine technology capturing the variety of things we discussed tonight. If you keep scrolling, there's also an advanced search filter, so you can really hone in on what you're looking for a little bit faster. One of the special features of the site, and why I wanted to bring it up, is it does allow you to create a free account. And creating a free account allows you to save any of the resources that you find on the site. And so again, those are lessons, fact sheets, videos, image galleries, and more. Allows you to save them into a collection that you curate and share that collection. And with that in mind, one of our follow-ups for tonight's event, once we get through our second event this Thursday, you will receive a collection from our team to get you started with a curated list of ocean exploration ocean exploration technology materials for you to dive in and invite you to the site to create a free account and explore for more. And lastly, this is one of our deep dive events. These are our virtual professional learning events. But one of the things we have coming this spring, for those of you that are educators in the audience, is a professional development opportunity. So many of you should be familiar with this page because you probably were sent here to register for tonight's event. But if you keep scrolling down for our professional development opportunities, we will be posting all of our updates here and are bringing back professional development workshops this spring, which are events where we dive a little bit deeper into how to implement different ocean exploration concepts and topics in the classroom for students, specifically looking at middle school and high school students. And I think that was my really fast pass. Again, I know that was a lot of information. Please do check out that resource sheet. If you did not get it ahead of tonight's event, we'll be sure that you get it afterwards, so long as you registered. If you did not register, you can still register for Thursday's event, and we'll make sure that you get it in that email chain as well. Same resource sheet. And there's just so much to dive into here. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Susan to wrap up our event because we're running pretty short on time.
Super. Thanks so much, Liz. That does bring us to the end of our program this evening. Again, a huge thanks to Kakani and Tim for your time and for sharing your expertise with us, and to Liz for sharing all the wonderful resources that are available from all of our different institutions in ocean exploration and ocean exploration technology. If there were any burning questions that we didn't answer, please do feel free to send them to us. You can use an email address, oceanexeducation@noaa.gov. Or if you're attending one of our professional development opportunities in the spring, please bring your questions with you. We'd also like to thank our team and crew behind the scenes from both NOAA Ocean Exploration and from the University of Rhode Island's Inner Space Center and from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Thank you all. For educators, if you need credit hours for tonight's event, please email me at susan.haynes@noaa.gov. That's susan.haynes@noaa.gov, or you can write back to the emails that you received confirming your registration. Thank you all for your incredibly enthusiastic participation and your great questions. And with that, we hope to see you all at another learning event soon. So have a wonderful evening. Thanks so much.